Hi, my name is Virgil and welcome on Mitui. In this video, I'd like to show you how to back up your WordPress. There is several ways of doing that. If you have the provider, they often offer the tools to do it, but you don't know where they back it up. Then you can use a plugin on WordPress, which backs it up on the cloud, like Google Drive or other cloud system. Still, you don't own the files. And then there's my way, which is very flexible, but it's a bit more complicated. And that's what I'm gonna explain you today. I've done a WordPress for my website called Mitui, where I share projects. Welcome to look at it. And I had to find a solution to back it up, and this is what I've chose. So let's get into it. I'll start by talking about the architecture, then the implementation, and I'll finish by an example. I won't go into specific with SSH, Linux command line, and VPS because I've done past videos for it. And there is a link below with everything that I type, which I invite you to open before to start. So I have a VPS where I have the WordPress website, Mitui. Then I have another VPS where I have my GOX and my cloud and everything accessible by personal users. Then I have at home a Raspberry Pi, and I have a storage unit with USB connected to my Raspberry Pi. And this is how the backup works. So I have a WordPress, which is a Git repository that pushes every day its backup to the GOX server. And then an hour later, I have the Raspberry Pi that pulls this backup on the Raspberry Pi, and then it will save this backup on the storage unit. And it will save this backup every day for the last 3 days. And if there is more than 3 backups, it will remove the oldest one. So if I take this architecture and then I put it on the screen, I have my website on this VPS, my GOX on this VPS, my Raspberry Pi here, and here my USB storage unit, which is plugged to the IP address of my Raspberry Pi, which is the same there than there. Now, so my website, which is this, and then the GOX, which is this, and then the Raspberry Pi, and then the storage unit with 3 backups from the last 3 days. Now, if I go through the code, I have here my push, my push, which is just a bash script that will save the SQL database, add everything, make a commit, and push to my master on the GOX VPS. And then on my Raspberry Pi, I will have a pull, which is in Python, that does a little bit more. So this will, so I put here how many directories I want to keep, and then I will do a pull. I will move this pull to the storage, create a new directory there with a date time, and then only keep the last 3 most recent of those directories. So I have a Chrome tab on both the VPS with my website and the backup on the Raspberry Pi with the backup. So if I open Chrome tab E, I'll see at the end that I've added a line which will push the directory every day at midnight. And then on the Raspberry Pi, I also have added to the Chrome tab a line that will run the Python script to pull the directory every day at 1 in the morning. So to validate that my implementation were working, so yes, I have those 3 backups here that pops up on the last 3 days, and yes, there seems to be all the files in it. What I've also done is implemented the possibility to load one of those backups on my Raspberry Pi. So this is one of those backup loaded, which works as it is, which proves that the whole system is working, so that the backups have everything to be able to have my website working. And it also gives me the possibility to change things on this test implementation to validate that I can do things before to change them on the production WordPress. So I can make tests because this is local, and then I can implement those validation tests on my production. This is Dweeb. This is the website where you can buy stuff. Well, I should write down buy stuff, not we sell stuff. Anyway. So you can buy stuff. And there's no backup at this point. And I'll show you how to back it up. I will install a backup for this website. So I'm gonna create a directory on my storage unit. I'll start somewhere. Let's start somewhere. I'll call it Dweeb, where I will do my backups. So this is the storage on my Raspberry Pi. You can see the IP address of my Raspberry Pi, and I made a folder called Dweeb. Now I'll connect to my VPS, where I have, well, I can stay there. So this is my Raspberry Pi here. You can see the IP address is local. And then I'll go to my VPS where I have, I think it's this one. Dweeb. So this is the VPS where I have Dweeb. Let's put it both full screen. So I have both. Oh, maybe I put both next to each other. Maybe it's clear this way. So on the right, I have my local Raspberry Pi, and on the left, I have my VPS. And what I'm gonna do is save everything that's in the folder Dweeb plus the MySQL database to my GOGS. So this is on the same VPS for Dweeb to my GOGS service, and then I'll push it to my GOGS and I will pull it on my Raspberry Pi. Sounds good? Sounds good. So I will create a Git repository called Dweeb. You can call it whatever you have, or Dweeb shop. Why not Dweeb shop? Dweeb shop. Dweeb shop sounds good. And I will go on my VPS. Let's put it again like that. So I had to create there an account, a temporary account on GOGS, which you could do to be able to create a new account for that backup website. And then I will clone here. I'll clone here my Git repository, and there it is. And I'll copy everything from Dweeb to the Dweeb shop. So I'll copy everything from my WordPress to my Git repository recursively with folders. And then I'll remove my Dweeb. Let's just check that everything is in the shop. Yeah, actually I should have done it all the way around. Maybe. That was not very smart. So everything is in there. Now I can do a backup of my website to make sure. Then I'll remove my folder called Dweeb, and I'll create again a Dweeb. I'll copy the directory where I saved to Dweeb. So at this point there is a backup which shouldn't be used, and if I go on my website, it should still works. So now I removed my old Git directory, and I removed my backup, and now I only have Dweeb, and in Dweeb there is the .git, which is everything you need. I'll not put an ignore file. I don't want to ignore anything. I just want to put everything that's in my WordPress on my Git repository. So I could also have just took the .git from the repository where what I've cloned and just moved this to my Dweeb folder, which would have been smarter. So now I'll add everything to this Git repository, and then I'll commit everything, and I'll push to master. Yeah, so it asks me for the username and password. Name, password. Okay, so now if I go on my Git repository, there's my whole website there, backed up. So I could also do a cron job of my backup of my website every day, but then I wouldn't have the MySQL, and if I would add the MySQL, it would just erase the MySQL, so I would have one backup done every day. And as currently my Git server is on the same VPS, it would be on the same hardware, which is, in case of a fire, not very a safe backup, right, OVH? So then I will add my credential, my Git credential, to be able to pull and push easier. So yes, the database is called Dweeb. So I will just change the name there to Dweeb. Tag. And so backup of the database, add everything, commit everything, push to master. Now let's try to run this script. And if I go on my master branch there, I should have the backup database. Then I will pull it on my Raspberry Pi. So there I'll also create a directory called Dweeb. There I'll also clone, first I'll clone, that makes more sense, this shop. And when it's cloning, I'm going to go on my server and create the cron tab to do this every day. So I already have a cron tab for my Mitwi, because it's the same place, so I'll copy paste the line and just change Dweeb. Dweeb, like this. So it push both at 00 in the middle of the night by using the script push in each folder. So on my VPS side, there's nothing else to do. Every day through the cron tab in midnight, it will push everything from the Dweeb directory and the Mitwi directory to their Git repository. And now on my Raspberry Pi, I have the Dweeb shop folder, which I will rename Dweeb first. I'll remove the old one. So I have my folder Dweeb. And then I'll install Python. So everything is already installed, but I'll do it anyway. So update. So I did an update. Now I'm gonna install Python pip. So my script is in Python 2.7, and then I will install Git for Python with pip install Python. Git Python. So I said pip and Git, and to my full Pi, and then I'll save in script. I'll just change here the paths of my storage unit. And I think that's all there is to do. So it'll save one directory every day on the dweeb. So if I now pull, what I also need to do is add the credential to the Git store, so it doesn't ask them, otherwise it wouldn't work. And then if I don't Python pull by Python. So if I do Python pull, blah blah blah, pull end. So everything now is pulled into this directory, and it created this this backup 25. So this is the first folder that was created with the first backup of my WordPress directory. Now I need to make sure that it works. Maybe it doesn't work. To test that, well, now I will make so that I can load this website from my Raspberry Pi, so locally. First thing first is the virtual host. So I'll copy the virtual host from my Mitwi backup to Dweeb backup. And I have to change. I'll change here the port. Oops. And I'll change here the folder. This is important, otherwise the page might show up as an error 404. So every permalink from the WordPress won't show up correctly. Okay, so that's it. So I can restart Apache. Apache 2, not Apache. Oh, and I also have to add poor listening to 1990, otherwise Apache won't be listening on this port. And now if I go on my local network, so this is Mitwi at 1980 and the Dweeb at 1990, and it doesn't work. Never works the first time. I realized that I'm always like, yeah, it's gonna work right away, but it never does. So yeah, add to nconf, otherwise the inside, sorry, otherwise the configuration from the host won't be taken into account, and then I can restart. So if I go to my directory, load this Dweeb database to this local MySQL server. So first of all, I'll need to create a database in there. So I'll create a database for Mitwi, and I will create the user, which should be the same user. I don't know where you see it in the WordPress. It should be the same than in your WordPress.php. So this is my user. So you want the user and the database to be called the same than on your production VPS, where you have your actual WordPress. Then I'll flush. Right. I will load my I'll load my backup SQL to this database that I've just created, and now it should work more or less. Yes, so it works more or less. I don't know what works and what doesn't work. Yeah, you see, like now I get error on pages, so there's not everything that works, but more or less it works. There's still changes that you need to do in the SQL database, because on WordPress there are a lot of places into the database where it takes the name of the URL. So if the name of the URL changed, then the pages don't work anymore. Too bad. So I'll go into MySQL database dweeb, and I will change in various database the URL to this new URL. So I haven't wrote a script for that, and I probably should, and maybe I will by the time I will upload the video, add a Python script so you can easily do it, but I haven't, so I'll just do the monkey business, which is everything by hand. So 1990, and the URL is this. And then I'll continue with all of them manually. Ooh, that's a lot of change. 300, you see, 300, well, 300, 296 modification into the database. So yeah, if you don't do it, it's not gonna work. Shit. I didn't wrote it correctly. I put 2 there. Okay. Next one. How much was this one? Also 296. Strange. I did it twice. What did I do? I don't know. Never mind. What's wrong with it? Ah, again. That's why I should never do things by hand, but just write down a script that does it for you. So much smarter. Yeah. Yes. 3 more to go. Two more to go. Come on, come on. I can do it. I can do it. I can do it. If you want it, you can do it. Yes. One more. One more. So this is all I found that had to be changed, and it seemed to work for Mitwi, so it should work for Dweeb. All right. So now I've updated every entry in most tables where the old URL. You can see that some didn't change and some changed. It wasn't in all of those tables. So now if I go on my local network and I check and it doesn't work, what do I have there? Yeah, I have an admin name into my local. So if I do this, I can also log into this Dweeb database. So, admin is a UX to be able to access your databases. In the past, on Linux, you often had the PHP myadmin, which is not anymore in Debian. So if you want to have a UX to be able to access your database, you need to admin, use admin, I don't know, there's probably other option. I use admin, which is just a PHP file that you can put anywhere you want. Why didn't I change those two? Because if I don't change those two, then of course it's not gonna work. Okay, so I'll do again things manually into the option. So there I'm trying to change the table from WordPress option. I want to change those two links to this link. $19.90. So 1990, and the website was Dweeb. So if I go into admin A, I can take this URL that I want to change from this table. So this is the table WordPress option. I want to change this URL to be this one, and it should change us to entry. Yes, like that. So this is correct. Now if I go there and I go to the admin, now it works. And if I go on the website and move around, I still get issues. Now it works. So find why. I'm missing a .ht_access file into my Dweeb directory. So this is on my Raspberry Pi, and I've added this to this file, and now it works. I'm not sure why. Honest to God, I'm not sure why, but now it works. I still have one thing to do, which is the Chrome tab, which I haven't updated, to add the pool of Dweeb folders every day on my Raspberry Pi. Now I have the M3 one. I'll add, oops, no, that's not the one I want to copy. I'll add the one for Dweeb. So like this every day at 1, so at midnight I push on my VPS from my real WordPress production to my Git repository, and every day at 1 I'll pull from my Raspberry Pi everything that's on the Git repository, and then I'll save it on the storage. And I'll do that for 3 days, and then I will for 4 days, and then on the 4th day I will remove the oldest backup. So I'll only keep the last 3 days, but you could also keep the last whole week, and then one of every month, every first month you also keep it. That would also be a pretty smart way to update, a pretty smart way to back up your files. Okay, so some days have passed, and now I have on my storage unit 3 backups from the last 3 days. I started to do this on the 28th of June, and now it's the 2th of July, and I have only the last 3 days saved on my storage unit for the Dweeb website. I've also in the meantime made a script in Python to be able to restore any of your backup folders. You just need to put in this information, so the old URL, the local URL that you're using, where is your backup, where do you want to restore it, the access to MySQL DB user password, then it will automatically move the files, restores the SQL, and then it will change into the database every old URL to the new URL. Alright, so now you have a way to back up your WordPress with everything that's in it, the files, the pictures, the database, to Git repository, and then use it locally on your network to make modifications whatsoever. Then you can, the way to back up this is pretty straightforward on your production. So if your production server burns, you will need to take the file you have locally and push them on your VPS reloads the MySQL the same way that I did for the test setup, so the test WordPress, and then you have your website back and running. I hope you enjoyed this video, you learned something, and I'll see you next time.